You are the founder of Adirondack Studios, and I wanted to ask you, how did you get into scenic set making and set design and fabrication?
I was an opera brat, starting with my very earliest years at Tanglewood with my parents, and then throughout my father's singing career, I was always around backstage. When I was 16, they allowed me not to go to music camp one summer, and instead I went to Lake George, where my father ran the Lake George Opera Festival. And they didn't know what to do with me because I was 16 in Lake George, so they said, here's $25 a week. We're going to put you in the basement at Queensbury High School and you can build scenery. Pounded a lot of nails. I learned a little bit about the technique of it, and I said, this is kind of fun, you know, and I got $25 a week for it too. So one thing led to another. By the time I got to college to be an actor, of all things, which was a stupid idea, they said, well, you're a freshman at Northwestern, and we make all of our freshman theater majors do something in production, you know, and they said, what can you do? I said, well, I can build opera scenery. So they said, we're heading you over to the opera workshop, and that's where I met Chris Detmer, who eventually became my co-founder at Adirondack Scenic. He was just back from Vietnam. He was a sergeant in the Marine Corps, and I was a long-haired hippie. So, but we hit it off, and we built scenery, and then I kept coming back to Lake George in the summer and upping my salary and my position there to where I was able to suddenly hire my friends and people that I'd met in the business. And then Chris said, why don't you join my shop in New York City, which was in 12th Street and Avenue B, which was not a very pleasant place to be at that point. And I said, why don't you guys come up here and we'll start a shop. It'll be on the Hudson River, but it'll just be a little farther north. So we did in '75, and it didn't go very well for a while because nobody knew where we were. But that, in a sense, is what happened. We dragged our tools, and we dragged as many people, 6 or 7 people as we could, and then we scoured the Adirondacks for artisans and craftspeople that could come in and kind of adapt to the peculiar sort of things that we did.
Awesome. Do you know a lot of other like fabricators or set designers? Are there a plethora of them or out there?
There's a lot of them, but it's a really small world. You pretty much, you know, we'll get a set of drawings or something, and I'll say, well, who's the designer? And oh, yeah, I know who that is. And because it's a small world.
Now, does that concern you? Do you think that this would be like set design and fabricating within this particular field? Do you think that that's a craft that is, in your opinion, becoming extinct, or do you think that these artists are supported in a way that they could flourish?
Not at all, because as you probably are aware, the idea of storytelling through scenery, if you will, has expanded from the stage into virtually everywhere. Casinos, restaurants, I mean, you know, everything now has a storyline, and the storyline has to be supported visually. So we're building amusement parks all over the world, and we're still doing live entertainment, as we did when we began, but we're doing commercial installations and museum exhibits that they're starting to get more immersive and more interactive. So
that's amazing.
So I don't think it's not going away. People want that visceral experience, especially since they spend the rest of their lives staring at their little handheld devices.
Yeah. Unfortunately, right? Right. Look up. Well, how does Adirondack Studios stimulate or bring in younger, fresh talent to kind of keep this flowing in this art field?
We have a bunch of kids, of employees that are working for us. We have outreach to BOCES through their various programs, and believe me, BOCES is becoming a lot more connected to the creative arts because, well, it used to be when I was a kid that, you know, if you didn't want to study, you would go to BOCES and learn how to be an auto mechanic or something like that, right? And it kind of got a bad rap, I think. But the fact is, I'm looking for creative welders, you know. I'm looking for people who are mechanics, who understand electricity, who understand plumbing, because we do all of those things. We have to incorporate all that stuff. So we have an incentive plan whereby if an employee turns somebody on and says, come on in for an interview, and we hire them, we give them $250. We have internships, mostly paid, unless it's a college credit type thing, in which case we make it sort of an unwritten obligation that after they go back and they have had their training and whatnot, that they come back and go to work for us. And so we have a mentor program with the local high school arts department. And so there's, you got to foster it, because we kind of lost a couple of generations, I think, when the digital age came upon us.
Now, do you think the digital age actually had an impact within this type of craft? And if you do, how so?
Yeah, because I think people got disconnected from culture in so many ways, and culture is kind of at the root of what we're all about.
When you say culture, what does that mean exactly?
Culture being anything from history, literature, the arts, anything that gives a population its identity is culture, to my mind. And I think we've lost touch
a little bit of that
with our culture in a lot of ways.
And you think Adirondack Studios is supporting the culture of the arts by continuing to connect with these artists and uplift them and amplify them?
Absolutely. If I can pay somebody to be creative, that's about the best thing in the world, and it's so satisfying to have, well, you'll see when you come and visit, you'll get to walk around, and I think you'll find that people are genuinely enjoying their work, right? And even if it's the guys that are watching the CNC machinery, and there's a lot of technology, and we're working in a digital realm as well as, hand illustration, so it's a nice mesh.
So I was actually going to ask you, with that, keep in mind, digital and traditional. So what are some of the talents that folks can bring into the Adirondack Studios?
Well, first of all, computer-assisted design, or AutoCAD, which is how we work in our technical design department. And we have a number of technical designers in our offices in Dubai and in Orlando and in Pasadena and also up in Argyle, New York. Our creative designers work in a ton of different platforms. Some of it is just hand illustration, as I said, but some of it is computer illustration and various three-dimensional software programs, et cetera, so that they can create the beautiful pictures that we start out with when we go into how to figure out how to build something. And then our robotics division runs our giant KUKA 7-axis carving machine that can cut out just about anything, you name it. And then we have a bunch of 3-axis and 5-axis CNC routers that cut up aluminum plate and cut up foam and plywood and make all the shapes that it used to take an army of carpenters hours with saber saws, right? But now you get it exactly right, and the army of carpenters can now be assembling everything. So it's been a huge increase in productivity.
That's amazing. So it's not just, you have machinists, you have people who work in robotics, you have carpenters, you have mechanics,
electricians,
welders.
and plumbers, and yes, mechanics,
wow,
exactly.
So it really does provide a lot of creative opportunity within several fields, which
Absolutely.
is amazing.
And then, of course, there's scenic arts, and then there's soft goods. Everything fabric, like the drapes in this studio.
Wow, beautiful. So I know Adirondack Studios takes diversity seriously in making sure that you have a diverse workforce. I wanted to talk to you a bit of why is that important to you, and why is that important to the creative industry?
Somebody, I can't remember, in fact, I saw a quote this morning said that creativity, which, as I said, is at the root of our business, creativity requires diversity of thought, right? And so if creativity requires diversity of thought, then you need diverse thinkers in order to have the most creativity you possibly can. And so we found through our global outreach that working with the Asians, the Middle Easterners, the Chinese, the Malaysians, everywhere that we've plopped ourselves down and said, hey, this is what we do, what can you do? We've gotten a huge cultural contribution from those people over the years, and it's really broadened our scope and made us more creative.
Oh, it's amazing. So it's not only diverse within the artist, but diverse within cultural diversity as well, which can also, build any type of creative institution up because you're having all these different cultures, all these different mindsets all in the same room, being able to bring different perspectives.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, do you have anything to say to any artists who want to try to get into set making or fabrication out there?
Yes, we'll actually pay you to do it. We might have to adapt some of your creative instincts or skills to meet the needs of what we're doing, but there's quite a cross-disciplinary tendency among our talented people. They move from fiberglass to carpentry to sculpture to soft goods to paint, and they like doing that, and that gives us a broader workforce, right? So that we can try to keep people busy,
yeah,
right? Because
keep them busy and
keeping
creative.
people busy in the middle of nowhere is a challenge.
I can only imagine. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with us, Tom, and I'm excited to tour the studio in the future.
Very good.
I appreciate
It's been my
you.
pleasure.